Module 13. Change Readiness. In this module, we will look at the Beckhard and Harris change formula. We will move on to working with individuals through major change and change agent networks. Change Readiness. Change initiatives need the commitment and motivation of the people who are receiving the change. Unless hearts and minds are won over, people will not make the effort to engage and the change will struggle to be successful. No two individuals will react in the same way to the change. The certainty is that every individual will have some reaction to the change. This reaction may range on a spectrum between embracing the change wholeheartedly to resisting the change with every bone in their body. Building individual motivation to change is key. It is crucial to understand how the proposed changes may affect people's motivation. The Beckhard and Harris change formula can help explain the forces which are acting for and against the change for individuals, and therefore pinpoint areas to focus on to increase motivation. Basically, an individual will decide to make the transition if they perceive that the effort or cost of changing is worth it. In order for this to happen, they have to be unhappy with the way things currently are, happy with the proposed solution, and not face too many unknowns or too much risk and disruption during the change. Implied in the formula is the assumption that if either A, B, or D are zero, then the change initiative will never overcome the cost of the change, people will resist and the change will fail. In this case, the formula can be a very useful way of beginning difficult discussions with the change sponsor and senior management about the wisdom of continuing with the change initiative. Focusing on raising levels of A, B, and D will lower resistance, increase motivation, and therefore increase the chances of the individual engaging in the change. Working with individuals in major changes. Recruiting a change agent network. It is important to recruit the right people into the network, and this requires some effort. The agents need to be established and respected enough within their areas for people to trust them with the tasks. However, recruit someone too high up in the organization, team manager, head of department, and they probably won't have the time to dedicate to the role. One way to get around this is to use the change agent role as a development activity for a team member who can carry out the role supported by their manager and team leader and have the legitimacy for the role amongst the team, and access to the team leaders when necessary. Some change agents can be successfully recruited by asking for volunteers. This works best when the change is high profile, a priority for the organization, or will affect teams significantly. More low-profile changes, or those not seen as core work for teams, may not attract the same level of interest. It is useful to be clear about what you require from your change agents, outlining what they are expected to do, the type of skills and knowledge you are looking for, and especially the amount of time the role will take. As the role will be undertaken on top of a day job, it is important to get agreement from the manager of your agents, otherwise you may find that they cannot give the time to the role as they are not being released from other obligations. Change agent networks can offer the following benefits. One dedicated person to assist in the information flow from the change team to each specific business area and back. A network of people across the organization who have the ability to break down silos and look at the effects of the change and possible solutions across different departments. A manageable-sized group with which to develop and test ideas, approaches, and solutions. A source of information and a feedback mechanism for affected staff, which is trusted and one of us. A group of users with in-depth knowledge about the change, who can challenge, constructively criticize, and suggest best ways to approach the change for their particular areas. Expert users for new processes or systems brought about by the change. It is important to recruit the right people into the network. Once your network is established, your change agents need to be inducted into the change program to raise understanding, get to know people, expose them to the change itself, and offer training. The use of middle managers. Use, when possible, middle managers as change agents. This works well in organizations who are more mature in their change management approach and where line managers are used to taking ownership of change. It is often the middle managers who are key in making the changes work. The biggest challenge with this approach is the amount of time middle managers can dedicate to the change. Tread with caution, as middle managers may not all be supportive of the change, especially in the early stages, so also need to be inducted. Scale the use of middle managers and change agents to match the size, scope, and speed of the change. Scaling the change agent network. The use of change agent networks or middle managers, as well as all other resources you need for your change, needs to be scaled up or down to match the size, scope, and speed of the change. The following considerations are important when planning the size of the network. The impact of the change on everyday work. The complexity of the change and the amount of training and support that will be required. The number and variety of stakeholders who will be affected by the change. The geographical spread of the stakeholders. The organization's previous experience with changes of this nature. The time allowed to complete and absorb the change. Working with innovators, majority and laggards. In any change, there will be a range of reactions from people. Some will be very enthusiastic and want to lead the way, some will be very resistant and lag behind. The majority will be somewhere in the middle. In 1962, Rogers coined the term diffusion of innovations for this effect. Rogers developed his diffusion of innovations by undertaking an historical study of how innovations took hold in societies. He segmented the society into 5 categories, depending on how quickly or otherwise they adopted the innovation. Figure 7.2 shows the percentage of people in each category. This theory can be applied for change initiatives, or innovations, in organizations. Each segment needs to be engaged in a different way to ensure complete adoption of the change. Explanation. Innovators and early adopters. The pioneers for your change. They are a very powerful group and can be utilized to give out positive messages to their colleagues, lead by example, and raise enthusiasm and buy-in for the change initiative. Early and late majorities. These make up the largest percentage of your users. They are a vital group to work with, as they can be persuaded to support the change, but can also easily resist the change, dependent on the information they are given and the behaviors they observe from the early adopters. Laggards. These will often resist change. It is important to find out whether they are doing this because they generally find change difficult, or because they have genuine concerns about your specific change. Take some time to think about the following. How recognizable to you are the different reactions described by Rogers? In a change, you are familiar with what were the characteristics you observed of each type of reaction. End of module. In this module, we have looked at change readiness, working with individuals in times of major change, change agents, and the use of middle managers in change.